Good morning and welcome to Round the County with Williamson County Mayor. I'm Rogers Anderson. Today we have the distinct honor to interview and talk to someone that's not new to Williamson County, Roddy Parker, Captain Roddy Parker. How are you today?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
I am fine.
Glad
Let's
to be
just
here.
go ahead and get that out of the way. Lift up your tie a little bit. Let's clear the coffee cup. Now that age stands for Anderson or Alabama?
Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah, work just for you.
Yeah. Roddy and I have, the many years that I've known him, he has been a very staunch supporter of Alabama and his programs. And so we thought it only proper in this new studio setting we have is to have the little Tennessee Bear to kind of keep an eye on you.
Keep it leveled out there.
Keep it leveled out a little bit. A lot of things have happened in your career. And we say that under the umbrella of the sheriff. You've been there 39 years?
39 years.
And started off as a young man. I've often seen some pictures of you, and just like there's pictures of me, that we didn't have the gray hair, and we didn't have as much in our face.
A little slimmer,
But what a wonderful career you've had. And Roddy, before we get into it, let's lay it out. You're retiring after 39 years, had your celebration this week, but you're not leaving. You're just going to wear a different hat in a different city, and we want to talk about that. But let's talk about Roddy Parker, the man, born, how'd you wind up in law enforcement, your family, and of course your extended family are the many men and women that you have worked with over the career, and to Fleming Williams, who actually hired you many years ago. And apparently it was a great hire.
Well, it worked out okay. Yeah. So, as you know, from Alabama originally, and family moved to Williamson County in 1966, I think it was. Through my friendships and associations, I just developed an interest in law enforcement. I had a lot of people that I knew, guys that were a couple of years older than I was, that had gotten on with the City of Franklin Police Department or the County Sheriff's Office. And like I said, my association with them, kind of hanging around them, I developed an interest in law enforcement and decided to give it a try, and applied when I turned 21. About 6 months later, John Easley called me, said, Sheriff wants to see you, and so that's how it got started.
John Easley and the sheriff, both of those men were institutions in our community, both of them deceased, but led the charge in those early days. So in those early days, what were you hired for? And it's a different role than it is today.
Well, my first job was a dispatcher. Back when the sheriff's office dispatched themselves, we didn't have the big fancy 911 center that we're blessed with today. You know, it was just a room about 10 by 10, had a radio and a telephone, and I kind of controlled things from there for a while, and moved from that assignment to back then they called them jailers. You know, correctional officers, now detention officers. We were jailers back then, and I worked the swing shift. And on Wednesday nights, I came in at 10 p.m. and I was both the jailer and the dispatcher. So we would lock the inmates down.
Now, which jail?
The one that got torn down on Bridge Street.
All right.
Yeah, not the one that's been reconditioned.
Reconditioned.
Yeah, reconditioned.
When
so
the Heritage is in now.
we eventually moved into that. But anyway, like I said, on Wednesday nights at 10 o'clock, I'd lock all the inmates down, which if we had 40 people in jail, that was a lot, I thought. And so, you know, I'd go up and answer the phone and do what needed to be done up there. And we had a hotline between the Franklin dispatcher and us, and about every hour so I'd call him and say, I'm going to go back and check on the kids. If you don't hear from me in 10 minutes, send the cavalry. So fortunately that worked out okay. I never lost anybody, and we got through that all right. So I've been very blessed in my career. I did that about another 6 months, and they came to me one day and they wanted me to go out on the road, and of course I was 22, you know, and young and didn't know any better. And I was like, sure, yeah, I'm ready. So, and of course I didn't know anything, but it was a good place for me to start at and get my feet wet. And back then they, as you probably know, you didn't have to go to the police academy right away. You could be out on the road for up to 2 years. So basically they handed me the car keys and wished me well. So
that was OJT.
Yeah, it was. So
well, I remember in those early days the dedication. You're moving on after 39 years, but you count my county commission and my mayors, I'm in my 32nd year. And when I think back in those earlier days, and sheriffing, law enforcement has changed a lot, Roddy.
a great deal, a great
For
deal.
the good.
It has, and it still needs to change some more to meet the demands of modern society, I guess you would say. Used to, it was enough to get out and meet the community and be a part of the community, but now we have to be wear so many different hats. There are so many new problems facing society. The prescription drug problem is terrible, and I don't see an answer to it. That's disturbing to me, because we run across so many people that are, messing up their lives over that stuff, and when they're on it, they're out of control. They're not bad people. They just get on that stuff and can't get off, and it ruins their lives and runs them afoul of the law. And you feel sorry for them, and you wish you could help them, but no one can help them but themselves at that point. So they end up doing crazy stuff that puts themselves at danger, and the police officers at danger, and the other first responders in danger. They have to deal with them, and that's a sad thing to have to see.
As I sit here and listen to you and the tone of your voice and it is a major concern, the drugs. As a young boy growing up, for the most part, is moonshine and alcohol
Right.
That you ran into, and particularly in the East Tennessee area that I was involved in. I didn't know that there were drugs, maybe I should put it that way. And somewhere after the 60s, and we began to see and hear about different products. And of course today, some of the drugs that are out there are not just mind, just changing your mind, and how you're just not yourself. Now that's not an excuse.
Right.
But it is a major epidemic we're going through in our country, and I'm afraid we're going to have to put a lot of resources to that to be so much better just to use it in education or for the general law enforcement community, or so many other things, but we're going to have to address it.
Yes. Well, I think the thing that most people don't realize, that even though young folks might get caught with a little bit of marijuana or something, and they say, well, he just had a joint. He's not doing anything really bad, but he's getting it from people that are bad, and people that are bad. We made an arrest a couple of years ago, stands out in my mind, where the kid was 18, but he was a high school senior in Williamson County, and made the arrest, and his phone was blowing up. People calling him wanting to buy dope, so we started answering the phone saying, yeah, come on over. And some of it was kids coming to buy dope, but some of it was some really bad people wanting for armed robbery and carrying around a couple of pounds of dope, and what they weren't from this county. They weren't kids playing kid games. This got way past kids playing kid games, but that's the type of people that you run the risk of associating with when you go down that road, and bad things can happen when you associate with folks like that.
Well, we'll have to deal with that in society. We'll have to deal with it as a community, and our law enforcement community is just going to be knee-deep in it. Let's talk a little bit about your current role as captain, and I know that you're a man of, you're a humble man, and most of us that realize who we are and where we're going and how we got there, we know there's somebody behind us that helping to make our careers even better. And that's got to be the men and women around you.
Oh, absolutely. If I've accomplished anything in my career, it was because of folks that I work with and have come up through the ranks with, like Chief Deputy Dusty Rhodes, and some of the other guys that's retired ahead of me, Fred Bennett, and individuals like that. So many good friends that I've made. So many people that's taught me the right thing to do. It's been a unique ride, a fun ride.
What's the, I won't say the most unusual event that you've been in your law enforcement career, but something that really stands out other than that 18-year-old? You've already mentioned that. Mm-hmm. But is there a particular case out there that you could never solve, or just that just has caused you to say, I wish I could put the final block on that one without mentioning names?
Yeah. There was a young lady, a young girl from the Grassland area, you might remember this, I don't know, came up missing. I had just started in 1978. She came up missing, and no one's ever heard from her since. And that has bothered me to this day.
I had forgotten that.
Mm-hmm.
That's 30 years ago.
Yeah. I can remember taking the phone call. I was a dispatcher at the time, taking the phone call from the father, and no one ever found her.
Wow. How about some of the happier moments?
One of the funnier moments I can
funny.
think. Yeah, one of the funnier moments, and I guess you had to be there, but I was a detective and I was out looking for a car burglar over in Smyrna or Laverne, I forget which, and of course I was dressed kind of like I am now, you know, and going around the complex looking for the guy. And I walked into the breezeway of this apartment building. There was two little boys down on their hands and knees playing cars. And I walked past them. I just said, "Hey, boys," just spoke to them, kept walking, and one of them looked at me and said, "Are you the police?" Because I had nothing on that would indicate that, you know. I said, "How did you know?" He said, "Because you got your Sunday school shoes on." I didn't have sneakers on, so I was automatically the police. I was like, okay. That's pretty observant.
You have had a wonderful career, and still got years left in your body to work. You could have stayed with the sheriff's department, but just recently you have been offered and accepted the police chief of Nolensville.
Quite an honor to be asked to do something like that.
New challenge in your life.
It really is. I've always had somebody else to blame if it didn't go right. Now the buck stops here, as Harry said.
The buck will stop. So today, of course, this show airs a couple of weeks from now, but today being the 13th of October, you're going to start to work officially on the clock under the Nolensville paycheck line.
Right.
On when?
Starting Monday. Yeah.
So you're taking the weekend off?
Yeah, well, I guess. I have the phone on, so I don't know how much time I'll get off. So, yeah, we're excited about that. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity. As you know, Nolensville is growing like the rest of the county. They're conducting a special census over there. They're guesstimating it somewhere around 10,000 right now. But the city's growing. They're doing a lot of positive things over there. The mayor and the city administrator and the board of aldermen have been very supportive of what we hope to accomplish over there. So we hope that 5 years down the road we will see a whole different Nolensville Police Department. You
know, in Williamson County, it probably wouldn't hurt to kind of touch on the differences between a sheriff and which is by statute, by law. Most anyone that's got any age on them and all has heard of the term the sheriff. Right. This goes back to, I guess, Nottingham in several centuries ago. And Jeff Long does a wonderful job for our community here in Williamson County. But our police chiefs they're different. They don't fall under the role of the sheriff. They work for and at the pleasure of the individual cities, whether it's Franklin or Brentwood, and they certainly have got a standard to maintain. But it's a little different role that you're going into, and you certainly, I would think, you would have relationships after all the time you've spent with the sheriff. The relationships between the sheriff and the police chief are going to be fantastic for the citizens in and around Nolensville. But kind of distinguish between the sheriff and the police chief because they're distinct role differences, I would say, and you certainly don't have all those answers at this point in your career, but there will be differences.
Well, as you know, the sheriff's elected, police chief's appointed by the city mayor and the alderman in the case of Nolensville. The sheriff has a lot of duties that are not law enforcement related. He does have the law enforcement responsibilities for the county, but he also takes care of the security of the courthouse, judges, the jury, serving civil process, and taking care of the jail. That's the biggest expense and the biggest headache, as you know, running a sheriff's office. Fortunately, I don't have a jail to deal with. We bring all of our arrestees to the Williamson County Jail. So our function is mainly law enforcement related. We respond to emergencies and criminal complaints and follow up on those.
So for the people that are watching this show and maybe never really thought about it, I thought it was a good comment that you made that in the law enforcement community, it doesn't matter if you're in the 6 cities that we've got. Once an individual is arrested, once an individual has to be assigned to a jail, I'll use that word, then he or she is going to come to the one and only jail that we have, which is Offham Century Court. And it's overseen, run by, and the responsibility of that falls squarely on the shoulders of the sheriff. And that's true about every county across Tennessee, except in those areas that are maybe metropolitan.
Right.
But when you think about it, even Darren Hall in Davidson County, Nashville, he's still responsible for that jail.
Oh, yes.
And a police chief, Anderson, who's in charge of quite an operation in Davidson County, to say the least, those people wind up in that county jail.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's, as I said a minute ago, that's one of the biggest responsibilities and expenses. I mean, you're responsible for, in our case down here, over 400 people that don't want to be there. They're unhappy about everything. They find whatever they can to complain about or cause trouble about, and it's just a constant headache. And my hat's off to the men and women that work inside the jail to try to manage those folks and do it in a manner. We try to treat folks nice, and we realize that everybody in jail's got a mama, daddy, got family that loves them. So we try to make it an easy situation as best we can, but also realize that they're in there for a reason. So we have to keep that in mind. So,
Captain, when you, or I should say, police chief, as our community grows, we're at approximately 220,000 people. You've indicated somewhere in the neighborhood in Nolensville city limits, or proper, as some people refer to it, there's approximately 10,000.
Right.
There's 70,000 plus in Franklin. There's X amount in Brentwood and Spring Hill and Thompson Station and Fairview. As our community grows, we certainly are dealing with traffic. We are certainly dealing with congestion. I made the comment the other day, I shouldn't have made it, but I've been guilty of that, it seems, several times in my career. I don't know how you could get a speeding ticket in Williamson County.
Well, that's true.
Because of the congestion.
Yeah.
But the thing that concerns me and causes me some really trying to understand, as our community grows, that means an average age in Williamson County is about 38 to 39, slightly under the age of 40. And I look at our growth in our schools, and I look at the growth of those kids who are, generally speaking, age 18 and under. Then I think about, and I have been over to juvenile court and see what Judge Sharon Guffey and her staff have to deal with, and the magistrates, and this, and you will be faced with it, is this growth of students and people is also causing this growth in juvenile crime. You and I'm a little older than you, but it's a different time for the misdemeanors and the mischievous things that you and I did as a boy growing up. Today it's serious, and our schools are all supplied and with our SROs that are staffed at every single school that we have. And another thing that this county does that many other counties don't. So we put our money in those areas of security. But as you look out into the future, you're going to need these young people to get into law enforcement.
Absolutely.
You're going to need this next generation. I'm going to need those for that security. And is it all centered around drugs, or vast majority of it? I hate to use the word all, but almost every day you turn on the television or the radio, there's a shooting that's going on in surrounding areas. But generally speaking, Williamson County has avoided a lot of that front page.
Yeah. We've been very blessed. Williamson County is still a very safe place to live, and I attribute a lot of that to the hard work that's been done in the past by law enforcement and the judges and the juries and district attorneys. They've done a good job of sending the message that Williamson County is not a place you want to do your dirty deeds, but we still have a lot of things that go on that's prevalent throughout society, like the drug problem. And what folks need to understand is kind of what I alluded to a while ago. There's so many other things that's operating on the outside of little Johnny or Jill having that joint. There's a lot of things going on that need to address, and you know, cell phones and cars, and you know, I read the other day that there were 160,000 licensed drivers in Williamson County, and you know, our population's at 225, and I'm thinking, do we issue driver's license at birth? It just seems like everybody's on the go nowadays. So, you know, I just urge mom and dad to be as much as involved with their kids and try to instill in them, and I know they do. But there's a lot of influences that we don't have control over that kind of messes
Well,
things
it's
up.
a different time. We've got about 4 minutes left, but it's a different time, and I want to touch on that. When I was a boy growing up, and I certainly don't know your circumstances because you grew up in Alabama, but there was not a lot of democracy around my house when Mama spoke.
I don't remember that either. I can remember distinctly my dad saying, if you ever did anything that got the cops involved, you better hope they get you first. And I knew he meant it.
Well, I think I had that same message, but it just, I mean, even before phones, mamas knew what. I truly believe there's an extra set of eyes in mothers' heads when you're growing up with their children. Absolutely. They just know, and I haven't figured that out, even as a dad and a papa. Mamas are just different, and they keep up with their children. And I do. When I give talks, people will ask about things, and I really suggest that it's okay for you to question your children.
Absolutely.
It's okay to know where they're going, what's on their phone, until you're 100% safe. And then I had the best children in the world, but they still got in trouble. and every now and then
right.
you just kind of had to pull back on the reins. Enough said about mine. A couple of minutes left. I'm sure I have not touched on something that's very important to you that you'd like to say, either as outgoing, you've done a wonderful job, it's a transitional period for 48 hours until you become the police chief. What a stellar career you've had, and thank you for all your many years of service. You've got the cameras now.
All right, well, just thanks to everybody that's helped me in my career, the many friends that I've made. Made so many great friends in the community just by getting out and talking to folks. That's the fun part of the job. That really is the fun part of the job. And I hope that the young officers coming up now will remember that and enjoy that part of it. I've tried to instill in them that not only is it important for the citizens to get to know them, but it's the fun part of the job. It really is.
Relationships?
Yes.
It's all about relationships.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take those to Nolensville now. So.
Well, let's talk about Nolensville. What can the folks in Nolensville can expect out of their new police chief?
Well, you know, back in my young part of my career, I patrolled the east side of the county, which included Nolensville, so I'm very familiar with that over there, and a lot of the people that's been around for a while, and they're going to get the same thing out of me that they've gotten for the last 39 years. So I'm going to try to do a good job.
As we kind of sign off, again, I want to say thank you for your many years of service to our residents and to our community, to your family and your extended family. We will miss you.
Well, I'll be around, Mayor.
I know you will. It's not like we're not going to see you, but Nolensville is one of those small cities that's slowly turning and growing, and it's wonderful that they'll have good law enforcement and people's feet that's got experience planted in the soil to keep that community safe. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your support through the years.
Captain Roddy Parker is now a police chief. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bricks. Sturdy, heavy, hard, smooth, rough, narrow, wide, ignored as ordinary, yet formed with ancient skills. Bricks offer security without aggression. White to black, rose to cream to gray, touches of purple, magenta, vermilion. The history and moods of earth are revealed by their presence. Used for strength, yet brittle, bricks shed chips when tumbled, but last centuries stacked tightly. They stand steady, offer the pleasures of earth, a sense of time, rarely intrude, simply wait for the observer's eye.